You're not the average person. You've read the books, you've done the inner work, and you understand how your emotions function. You can trace a pattern back to its origin, and you know yourself in ways that most people never will. And still, there's a version of you that's running a pattern that you cannot seem to stop. And here's what that ceiling is actually telling you. You see, because it's not telling you that you need more knowledge. It's telling you that there's a layer of intelligence that's operating beneath both of those things that neither IQ or EQ was ever designed to touch. You see, you can be smart and also be stuck at the same time. You can be emotionally aware and still be repetitive, because IQ and EQ, as real as they are, don't measure the one capability that determines how fast you actually evolve. And that's the ability to observe how you think and upgrade it in real time. And I want to illustrate this for you here on the board. So I'm going to draw out 3 different circles. So we have the bottom circle here. Then we have a middle circle, and then a top circle. So all of these are going up, okay, to the top one up here. And for most people, these first 2 circles, this is where most people are operating at. They're smart, they're aware, they're doing the work, and they understand themselves. And there's a level above these 2 that nobody has shown you how to access, which is here. And it's not because it's rare. It's because most people are not aware that it even exists or that it has a name. It's the ability to observe how your system is running while it's running, not after the pattern has already played out, not in retrospect, but in the moment itself, in real time. Now, I work with a lot of different entrepreneurs, creators, founders, high achievers, where they understand themselves completely here in these first 2 circles. However, their ability to catch themselves right in the moment, to observe their own thinking, hasn't really came to the front and center of their actual personal development strategy, because they're so focused on the after effects, on what happened. This happened, I felt this way, I did this, but they never caught themselves right in the moment and realized, hey, this is about to happen. I'm about to react this way. And stopping yourself right there and then so you can reframe that and actually change that with a different action, different behavior. You see, most people understand themselves completely. They have the IQ, the EQ. But when it comes to actually making real change and going to the root cause in terms of the root operating system that's running everything, they haven't been able to do that. It's the missing link that they never really even understood that was available to them. And today, in this video, you're going to see exactly what that is. So here's what we're covering today. We're going to go over the ceiling that knowledge cannot solve. Because just being smart and aware is not enough to stop a pattern in real time. There's a missing element here that's running underneath both of those. So let me quickly label these here. So this is IQ, EQ, SRI. So the second thing that we're going to cover today is the IQ to EQ to SRI architecture. These are 3 levels of intelligence, and we're going to go over what each one processes and why the third one here is the one that operates and really ultimately upgrades the entire system itself. And then the third thing is we're going to go over the 3 levels of thinking plus the SRI loop. The 3 levels of thinking are the reactive, analytical, and reflective. And we're going to go into those and dive real deep, and why most people never ultimately reach the 3rd level, because they just don't even understand or are aware that it even exists for them. And then the SRI loop, this is a 5-step mechanism here that is going to show you how to upgrade the entire system itself, okay? And then the 4th thing is why the AI era is changing everything. Why the same shift that's making intelligence less scarce is making self-reflection intelligence the single most important thing to develop right now. And then finally, we're going to go through the self system. This is a 4-step system for developing the real-time observation capacity that changes what's possible, starting from exactly where you are today. So let's jump in. Let's go over the 3 circles here. So we have the IQ, EQ, and SRI. With the IQ, this processes information. With EQ, this manages emotions. In this SRI here, this is the level that's above both of these here in terms of the IQ and EQ. This is self-reflection intelligence. And what this does is this upgrades the system itself. You see, IQ helps you think logically, and EQ helps you navigate what you feel, but neither of them helps you to observe your own patterns so that you can catch your thinking while it's running, or upgrade the operating system that's producing your results. You see, you can be smart, and put this up here, smart and still stuck. You can be emotionally aware and still repeat your patterns, right? All the different things that you are doing that you realize, hey, this is not useful or helpful for me. And even though you know that you're doing it, you're still repeating it. Because you see, IQ and EQ operate on the content of your experience, and SRI operates on the system that's producing your actual experience itself. So let me show you what I mean. In terms of the 3 levels of thinking, so you have the first level, you have reactive thinking. This is where you have automatic, emotional, unconscious. So this is where you are normally, instinctually, unconsciously reacting to your life experience, okay? In terms of whatever happens to you, whatever's going on, it's just, hey, somebody cuts you off, somebody, says something negative to you or rude to you. This is how you're normally going to react without even thinking about it, right? It's just your unconscious patterns that are normally happening without even your awareness. And that's all programmed through years and years of you acting a certain way, seeing yourself a certain way, right? And ultimately all coming down to your identity. OS, your identity operating system. And this is where most people spend most of their time. Everything that they're doing in terms of the reactions is all automatic. And then level 2, this is the analytical thinking. This is logical, structured, deliberate. And this is where IQ and EQ lives, because you can be logical, you can be structured, you can be analytical, like this makes sense because of X, Y, and Z and ABC. And then you can feel good about it. And then you come to conclusions and realizations, and you realize that, yes, this is the structured, logical way to think about this. And this makes sense because of this analysis and these details and this KPI, whatever that may be, right? This is where IQ and EQ sits, and it works very well. But level 3, this is reflective thinking. This is the level of the SRI. This is where you're observing your own thinking. So you're able to see your actual thoughts in real time and be able to look at it and be like, okay, hey, I'm thinking this way. And you're able to catch yourself right in the moment and say, why is this negative thought here? What is this doing for me? Why is this in my experience right now? And then realizing that, hey, you know what? I have a negative thought. What am I going to do about it? How am I going to change this? Am I going to acknowledge it and accept that it's here and acknowledge? And then be like, hey, you know what? I realize that you're here. You're serving a purpose. Maybe you're trying to protect me, or maybe it's just unconscious conditioning, and I'm not going to pay attention to it. And I'm not going to be reactive and just act on something because I feel a certain way, or I'm not going to have it be logical because it makes sense. No, I want to observe both of these simultaneously. Think about this. Let's look at it from a pyramid aspect, okay? So you have the 3 different levels right here. This is the SRI. And this looks down on the bottom 2 because it says, hey, I'm thinking analytically right now. And then I'm also thinking about this from a reactive perspective. But then how is that whole entire system even operating itself? Like, what is the system that's creating all those patterns, those actions, those unconscious emotions that are just coming out because everything's automatic? This is where you're stopping yourself and you're saying, hey, you know what? I realize I'm thinking reactively, emotionally. I realize that this is a logical way to look at it, but let's look at both of those simultaneously and realize they're just patterns that are running unconsciously. And let's reflect on that and see what's really going on here, because this is the root of the ability for us to look at both of these and analyze them and stop them in real time. Okay. SRI allows us to see this identity OS, to see the system, the root system in real time, so we can catch everything that we're doing that is causing us to not get the results and the outcomes that we actually want. So SRI is where everything changes for us. So let me draw this loop out here so you can see how this works. So let me quickly erase this here so I can show you this loop. So you have a thought, okay? This comes to you, it's normal, it happens, right, automatically. And then it goes into your awareness. You realize you're having this thought. And then from here, you question it, right? You're up here at the top of the pyramid and you're saying, hey, where is this thought coming from? Why am I having this thought here in the first place? And then that question leads you to a reframe in terms of how you relate to this thought, because normally and most likely it's going to be a reactive type of thoughts where you're doing something, right? Something happens to you, you get cut off, you are in a conversation, somebody maybe talks down to you, or you're in an argument and then somebody says something to you that hurts your feelings or makes you feel a certain way. And so now you're changing how you relate to this thought. You're reframing what it means to you, okay? And so then from here, you get a new response from this reframe, okay? So this new response goes back to your thought. So it becomes this loop. You have a thought, you become aware of that thought, you question it, like, hey, what does this actually mean here? Like, what's really going on here? And then you reframe that meaning of what it means to you and how you relate to it. And then you get a new response. So it helps you see the entire system. Because here's the thing, you don't eliminate thoughts, you upgrade how you relate to them. And that's the biggest thing here. It's about the reframe. It's about understanding that you are going to react a certain way and that you are conditioned a certain way to think and to go about your life, your experience with emotions, with unconscious patterns, logically structured, but then you are now able to reframe and change how you relate to that specific thought in real time. Now, in terms of how this all relates to like AI, because it's really important to realize and understand that now AI has become a place for us to go and outsource our thinking. And so for AI is increasing our thinking outsourced to be outsourced. So a lot of times now what we're doing is we're just going to AI and we're asking for answers, and we're not thinking and wrestling with the problem ourselves first, because that's what allows us to keep that mental muscle and continue to build it. But if we're continually going to AI to ask for answers and to not think through things first, we're going to give up a very important part of us that makes us human, to really think and wrestle and have agency over a problem. Okay, so SRI, this allows us to have our thinking be upgraded, especially when we're able to use SRI with AI in conjunction to reflect, to question. Think about a scenario that you go through, okay? And you are feeling a certain way, and you keep seeing this pattern repeating, like, hey, every time that so-and-so happens, or every time that I get into an altercation with somebody, or an argument with my significant other, or whatever that may be, you are able to notice after the fact that you are going through those patterns and you keep repeating them, and you're wondering why they keep repeating. What you can do, and I talk about this in a lot of my other videos, is using AI to help you with the self-reflection, intelligence aspect of things, where you can go into AI and say, hey, I'm having these thoughts, I have this pattern, and I'm aware of what is happening, but it keeps repeating, right? It keeps happening. The same pattern keeps repeating. And so then you're able to use AI to help you utilize this loop here in terms of the thought, the awareness, the question, and the reframe. Give it its full context. Like, hey, this is what happened, and this is how it made me feel. This is how I think about it logically, structurally. How can I best respond next time using this in terms of a loop, so that I can have a process of me observing the entire system itself, and I can change how I respond to those patterns in real time. You see, because as AI handles a lot of what IQ used to handle in terms of the processing of information, building frameworks, organizing complexity, the edge is no longer going to be just simply knowing more, because knowing more is going to be a commodity, right? Information, knowledge is going to be something that everybody has access to just from their mouse, from their computer, because they can just go and ask GPT or Claude, hey, what is this? Or what do you think about this over here? And get immediate knowledge very quickly, right? In a matter of seconds. And so the edge that's going to be upcoming for us, and really starting now, is going to be the ability for us to understand ourselves better, and to be able to see ourselves clearly and understand what are all the patterns that are running that we're aware of, and we understand they're there, but we don't understand why they keep happening. But understanding the whole entire system itself and how it operates is the extra edge for us as we continue into the AI evolution and revolution that's coming, and it's already here. And so ultimately, in an ever-evolving world of AI, your advantage is not going to be knowledge or information. It's going to be self-awareness. Now, let's go into the misdiagnosis, where the gap really sits. So let me quickly erase this right here and give me a little bit more room. Okay, so we have after the fact awareness, and then we have real-time observation. This is the SRI. This is essentially what normally happens, where we're able to see the patterns after the fact, after they happen, okay? And where we sit there and we ponder and we think about, man, I can't believe I did this, or I can't believe I acted this way, or I can't believe that so-and-so made me feel a certain way, right? And then we are not able to catch the actual pattern or behavior, action, activity in real time. But SRI allows us to do that, because this is the pattern and really the challenge that I see that most people go through in terms of trying to become a better version of themselves. They're always able to say and tell and talk about, hey, this happened. Here's the whole experience. I acted this way. I said this. She said that. He said this over here. And they're able to communicate that very effectively and very precisely. But here's the challenge. None of them are able to ever catch that thought or that feeling or whatever it may be that they're going through that's causing that behavior, that action, right? That pattern. They're never able to catch that in real time while it's happening so that they can choose a different action. Because with SRI, that's the biggest difference maker here. It's about being able to catch the thought itself while it's forming. It's about catching the pattern before the action executes. It's where you're able to choose the response from your own self, right? And take action or not take any action, because it's no longer running by default. It's no longer automatic. It's no longer reactive or just analytical or logical or structured, okay? Because it makes sense. This is where you have a deliberate choice now to act differently, because you're able to see the entire operating system and the entire system as a whole, because you're observing the thought itself, okay? Because a lot of people are really good thinkers. There's a lot of people out there that are top thinkers. They can really think about strategy, content, sales, marketing, whatever that may be. But very few people are actually able to deliberately observe their own thinking, right? It's like the metacognition, where you're up here, and we can even call this metacognition, meta-awareness, where you can observe the system, Identity OS, and just really the patterns, everything as a whole. And you're able to observe all of that in real time and be like, whoa, why am I thinking this way? Where is this thought coming from? And I know this thought is here, it's negative, but you know what? I'm going to accept it. I'm going to acknowledge it, but I'm going to change how I relate to it. Because think about this. Maybe it's something where you're fearful. You're like, hey, don't take this action because you could risk losing your money, or you can risk losing, or you can risk looking good in front of others. And what if you fail? Because then you're going to look weird or look bad in front of your peers or your family, whatever it may be, right? Where it's trying to protect you. And so you don't take that action, but then you realize through observing your own thoughts, you can catch that thought and be like, okay, you know what? I acknowledge this. I respect this. However, this is not going to stay with me, because I realize that it's just here to protect me and to protect that current version of me. And so I'm going to change that. I'm going to reframe that thought and say, hey, you know what? I know why you're here. I appreciate it. I acknowledge it. But I'm going to take action anyways, because I'm going to change how I relate to that thought, because I have observed it from the reflective thinking, SRI perspective. Okay, so now I want to go over the self-reflection intelligence system. So let me go ahead here and erase the board, and we'll jump right in. Okay, so self. This is an acronym here. The self, reflection, intelligence, system. This is 4 steps, and each one of these builds the real-time observation capacity that IQ and EQ, developed in isolation, cannot produce. This is a very powerful system for the SRI, for the self-reflection intelligence, for allowing you to see the system as a whole. So let's jump into the first letter here. So we have S. Slow down awareness. This is where you want to create space between thought and reaction. You see, this is the access point of everything. The gap between the thought arriving and a reaction that's being executed, that gap, that's where SRI lives. Most people's gap is effectively 0. You see, because the thought arrives and the reaction fires immediately. The pattern executes before observation is even possible. Like there's not even an instant there for you to be able to observe, because remember, everything is all done reactively in terms of the unconscious actions and behaviors, right? So there's no room for us to be able to stop and observe and reframe. And you see, slowing down isn't about being less decisive or taking more time to make a decision. It's about inserting the moment of awareness that makes any choice possible at all. So anytime you catch yourself going through something where you normally act a certain way, slow down and just be like, hey, I'm having an argument here, or, you know, this is happening right now where I normally act like X, like Y, like Z, and let's slow down and let's realize what's actually happening here and how I'm going to normally act. And let's look at what's really going on here. Step number 2, we want to examine our thoughts. And so for this, you want to ask yourself, why am I thinking this? And for this is not what am I thinking. You're not looking for what exactly is happening or what the thought is itself, because that's level 2 thinking. Remember, that's the logical, analytical thinking. It's like, this is what I'm thinking. You need to ask why. Super important here. You need to get to the root of it all. And that's that self-reflection intelligence coming into play here. You want to see the root. You want to see the top. Remember the pyramid? Up here. You want to see everything down, and you want to say, hey, why am I thinking this? So you want to ask yourself, what pattern is producing this thought? What identity is running underneath it? What operating assumption is generating this interpretation? You see, examination is the difference between experiencing a thought and interrogating its source. So this is where you want to do some self-analysis and look at, okay, what activities or actions or behaviors or just events in the past have led me to think this way, to have these kind of thoughts, to have these type of interpretations, these perspectives, okay? Like, what belief is serving you to have this type of thought in the first place, okay? And obviously it's not going to be serving you in a positive way, but it's giving you this type of reaction in the first place. But for us, we just want to see what is happening here that has brought us to act, to think, to react in this certain way. Like, where has this come from? Step number 3, you want to look for pattern. So you want to ask yourself, what keeps repeating? And what is it reflecting? Okay? Very, very important here. You want to look for the patterns that keep happening and say to yourself, hey, this looks to be that it's reflecting this perspective, this narrative, this worldview, right? So that you can have that self-reflection intelligence helping you do that analysis, because patterns are the language of the operating system. And when I say operating system, I'm really centering around the identity OS, okay, which is my whole philosophy and thought architecture around how we operate as individuals, okay? We are essentially systems, programs that are running, and we can be reprogrammed, but at the root of everything is the identity OS, the internal operating system. And so patterns are the language of that. And you can think about this whole thing here in terms of identity OS, like Windows or iOS, okay? It's the required software that allows you to run the device, the system as a whole, right? And so patterns is the language of that operating system. Every repeating behavior, every emotional reaction, every consistent ceiling that you're hitting is the system that's surfacing its own architecture for you. Because the question is not, why does this keep happening to me? The question is, what identity is this pattern reflecting? Maybe it's reflecting an identity of you seeing yourself as someone who's not very good with money, or is only able to make 20,000, 50,000 a month. And that if you were to hit 100,000 a month, that's just out of your realm of possibility of like, I don't even know how I could even do that, right? So you want to look at what identity is it reflecting? And that should tell you the entire narrative in the story in terms of what pattern is repeating here and why it's happening. And then what is it reflecting? What identity is it reflecting? Okay, what operating system? So all of this here is going to allow you to understand that. And then the last step here, F, form a new response. This is the reframe aspect of it all, right? Where we're becoming aware, we're examining, we're looking for the patterns, and then now we're reframing the actual response to that particular thought. So this is where we choose the higher level version every time. You see, this is where SRI, self-reflection intelligence, closes the loop. This is after observation, after pattern examination, and after pattern recognition. There's a choice, and it's not to suppress the old response, because suppression doesn't upgrade the system. Think about it. When you're sweeping things under the rug, you're letting things get to you and you don't face them and you don't acknowledge them, you don't reflect on them. Eventually it's all going to boil up and pop, and it's going to come back and haunt you in some way, shape, form, or another. And so the move here is to think about the version of you that you actually want to step into and to live through, right? Version 2, whatever version of yourself that you want to step in, that has the ability to slow down awareness, examine thoughts, look for patterns, form a new response. That version of you that practices SRI on a daily basis and has the awareness, understanding that you have the ability to control your thoughts, control your outcomes and your results, because you're able to observe your thoughts and change them in real time. And so always when you're reframing that thought, you look at, okay, let's say it has to do with something about fear, where you want to do something and maybe launch a brand or a different business, or take on an opportunity, whatever it may be, that there's fear involved and it's holding you back. You want to say and think about, okay, what is that version of me that's actually doesn't have that fear and has surpassed that and is living that experience, that life that I want? How would they react to this moment right here, right now? Because choosing that deliberately is the evidence that the subconscious internal operating system needs to register that this is who I am now. So SRI ultimately is the difference between reacting and designing. Because with designing, you have control. With reacting, it's unconscious and you don't have control of it because it's happening automatically. So let's recap these steps here. So we want to slow down awareness. We want to examine our thoughts. We want to look for patterns. We want to form a new response by reframing what that thought means and how we relate to it. And so now you have a new tool in your arsenal where you have the ability to use IQ, EQ, but then SRI to observe the system as a whole. Now, with this system, this will allow you, and has allowed you too, if you've gone through this far through this video, allowed you to see the software programming that's been running your system, that's been running you, not the emotions, not the thoughts, but the system underneath them. And that shift from experiencing the patterns to observing them is the moment that SRI activates. And once it activates, the upgrade becomes continuous, not because you become a different person. It's because you've gained the ability to see in real time what version of you is currently running and the power and ability to choose differently. So remember, the edge as we step into the AI evolution and just AI space as a whole, and it continues to grow, the ultimate advantage is not more information, more knowledge. It's self-awareness.